Shalom everyone. I'm going to read to you the new Points to Ponder column. This one is for the weekly Torah portion of Beshalach. And I'm going to try and expand it as I read, which I did only a little bit before. I'm going to try and do it some more now, and let's see how it goes. So the title is The Subtle Art of Giving Up. Just one stop before arriving at Mount Sinai, at a place called Refidim, the Amalekites attacked the Israelites. The Jews succeeded in conquering them temporarily, but it became clear that this would be an eternal struggle. The verse goes, "There shall be a war for the Lord against Amalek from generation to generation. Ki milchama leHashem b'Amalek midor dor." This is the original Hebrew. Following this, the Jewish people were given what is perhaps the harshest commandment in all of the Torah, to eradicate the people of Amalek from existence. Fortunately for us, and for any potential descendant of Amalek, the people of Amalek don't exist anymore. We have no idea who they are, so this commandment is out of date. It is not applicable in any way in our generation. So we don't have to contend in any way with this commandment on a practical level. But the question still remains, what does Amalek represent spiritually? What is the deeper meaning of the battle with Amalek? Every idea in the Torah also has a deep inner internal meaning. This was a central tenet of the Baal Shem Tov, that every sentence, every verse, every commandment, every story in the Torah is eternally and universally applicable. What about all the things that cannot be performed today? What about all the stories that have to do with history? What about all the prophecies that have to do with the future? What about everything that doesn't apply to every person, like commandments only for men or only for women? The answer is, all of them apply to everyone in some sense. There has to be some sense in which a more spiritual, deeper way, in which every story, every element of the Torah is applicable to everyone. So going with this, we have to ask, what is the deeper meaning of the whole story of the Amalek people, the Amalekites attacking the Israelites, the battle against them, the commandment to eradicate them, everything. We have to understand this on a deeper level. Now, according to the teachings of Hasidism, Amalek represents the power of doubt. Amalek is an agent of skepticism. This could be skepticism that arises from within us, from inside, that we have constant thoughts about doubting our faith in God, but it could be doubting other things as well. And sometimes it can come from the outside. Sometimes it could be a person, a society, a book, a movement that is all about celebrating and putting the ideal of skepticism as the highest ideal. So Amalek is an agent of skepticism. Where does this come from? In a minute we'll open this up and we'll see what kind of skepticism exactly Amalek represents. But just to get our heads around this idea, where is this coming from? So the main hint or allusion that is given to this is that the numerical value of the word Amalek in Hebrew, which is 240, the gematria, this is how it's called, the numerical value, has the same numerical value as the Hebrew word for doubt, which is safek. So safek and Amalek both equal 240. So it's the same number. There's some connection between the two. But of course, this isn't conclusive. Every time we have a numerical value equation, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the same thing. It could mean that it's antagonist. It could mean a whole bunch of things. It all has to do with our interpretation. But there is another illusion, a much more clear indication of this idea in the actual biblical text itself. If we read it, just read it in a straightforward way. The verse, "And Amalek came and waged war with Israel," which is Exodus 17:8, appears directly after the verse, "Is the Lord in our midst or not?" This is verse 7 just before. This verse, "Is the Lord in our midst or not?" is a description of the sense of doubt that arose among the Jewish people surrounding their lack of drinking water. That was the story just before the story about the attack of the Amalekites. So the fact we have these two verses, one after the other, that there's one verse that says, is the Lord in our midst or not? And then immediately afterwards, Amalek came and waged war with Israel, shows that there's a deep connection, that the moment that the Jewish people experienced doubt about the presence of God in their midst, then the Amalekites were able to attack them. So the gematria, the numerical thing, is only assisting this more straightforward idea. Now, we say that Amalek is doubt, and because Amalek is like the epitome of evil, something we have to eradicate, that seems to mean that that doubt is necessarily and altogether bad. And of course, this is not the case. Without skepticism, there would be no science, which is a good thing, and science is a good thing. And it wouldn't be a good thing not to have it. And also within the Jewish tradition, within the tradition of the Beit HaMidrash, the house of study, within the Jewish learning tradition, Judaism celebrates the asking of questions and the re-examination of principles. So doubt is not in and of itself a bad thing. So in order to comprehend this association of Amalek with doubt, we must fine-tune our definition. And we need to propose that Amalek symbolizes a particular kind of doubt, not just any old doubt or doubt in general. Amalek symbolizes a particular kind of doubt which we can call radical skepticism. What is radical skepticism? It's the kind of skepticism that is never, ever satisfied with any answer, with any proof, with any piece of evidence. In the face of any and every conclusion in the world, it would always argue and ask, who says? Maybe you're wrong. Are you absolutely sure? Do you know this with absolute certainty? This is radical skepticism. And now, this kind of skepticism, or skepticism in general, may offer a very positive contribution in certain contexts. Obviously, we don't have to accept everything at face value, and we need to question, and that's how we learn things, and that's how we advance and we grow, and skepticism in itself is a very, very good thing. But if we're only skeptic, and skepticism is like the highest ideal and has the final word, and there isn't a kind of decisiveness and an ability to make decisions not based on absolute knowledge, which we never have, by the way, as a counterbalance to this skepticism, then we're locked forever in a kind of square one situation. Because whenever we want to advance, comes this kind of radical doubt and says, are you absolutely sure? Maybe there's a better option. And, we have this expression of FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it constantly drives that fear into our heads, and we can't do anything. And living with this kind of radical skepticism is a bit like building a house of cards opposite an open window. The wind will constantly hit it and cause it to collapse, and we will never be able to advance beyond like one or two cards. It's impossible. Now, this understanding of Amalek representing radical doubt, aligns beautifully with two things. The meaning of the name Amalek. The name Amalek can be understood. It's not just a name. It can be understood as meaning something. And also the name of the place where the battle against Amalek was waged, which was called Refidim. So Amalek can be read in Hebrew as a contraction of two words, which is Am-Molek. What does Amalek mean? Amalek means a decapitating nation. A nation that, so to speak, decapitates its opponents. Amalek. It causes their heads, let's abstract it a little bit, their heads, their cognitive level, their intellectual world, to be disconnected from their body, which is the more, the active, the world of decision making. And when you think about it, this is exactly what radical skepticism does. It confines, it locks up all the ideas into our heads, within our heads, and it doesn't allow even a single idea to sort of descend from the realm of thought to the realm of action. Because whenever we have an idea, it says, who says, maybe, are you sure? And the ultimate result of this is that all ideas are in our heads, disconnected from the body, and it decapitates us. Metaphorically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, it decapitates us. It cuts off the head from the body. Now, what about Refidim, the name of the place? Refidim, the sages, interpret this as alluding to, again, a contraction of two words, refi yadayim or rifyon yadayim, which literally means weak or inept or lifeless hands. Hands. Rifyon yadayim, yadayim is hands, and rifyon is something that's sort of limp. And refi yadayim is when our hands are limp and they can't do anything. And now their interpretation is that this place, refidim, symbolized a state in the Jewish people that we became lax in observing the commandments. We weakened our hands from performing the commandments. And this is how Amalek was able to attack us. This goes along with the kind of doubt, and is God in our midst or not? But we can also sort of reverse the cause and effect order here. And we can say that maybe it was the other way around. Because Amalek attacked us because we were in a state of doubt. And once we struggled with Amalek, we were preserved in a state of helplessness. We were paralyzed. We couldn't do anything. And it leaves us sort of empty-handed, and unable to move on, to advance towards the next destination. What is the next destination? It's Sinai. So Amalek is coming and attacking us just before Mount Sinai, which is where we are going to receive the Torah. And the Torah here represents our destiny, our calling, our mission in life, what we have to do in the future, what we came into the world to do. Each one has his own Mount Sinai. And just before your Mount Sinai comes this sort of demon inside of us, each of us. It's before we get married, it's before we find a new job, it's before any major decision. That every major decision is like our Mount Sinai. This is where we get our Torah, this is where we get our calling, our destiny. And then comes this Amalek and decapitates us metaphorically, makes sure we only sort of go in circles inside our heads, and we don't actualize any decision, again, like the house of cards with the wind. And then it leaves us in a state of helplessness and with our hands tied and weak and limp hands. This is Refidim. So we can't get out of Refidim and advance to Mount Sinai unless we conquer Amalek in some way. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we conquer Amalek? How do we move beyond this kind of radical skepticism that can attack us within us? So this too, we can learn from looking at the details of the battle between the Jews and the Amalekites in the desert. How did this battle take place? So the battle was conducted on two planes, the material and the spiritual. On the surface, on the ground, Joshua and his soldiers fought the Amalekites' military forces. This was a straightforward, regular combat. But there was another level. On the other level, Moses, he wasn't a warrior. He ascended to the top of the adjacent hill. And what he did was that he lifted his hands heavenward. And he had two people helping him and helping his hands sort of raise, because it was a lot of effort to do this all day. And what happened was that whenever his arms became tired, by the way, this is again the metaphor of the arms, right? This is not just an idea of the sages that refidim is limp hands. It's the hand motif is in the story in the simple reading of it. So anyway, whenever he was able to raise his arms properly, then the Jews then the Hebrews on the surface, on the ground, in the battlefield, would become stronger and would win. But whenever his hands tired and fell down, then the Amalekites would be the ones to overpower. And this battle, which was an inner spiritual battle within Moses in some way, because it all depended on how much he was able to raise his hands, this is how it came about. And what's going on the ground level is really dependent on what's going on at the hilltop inside Moses. This is where the real war is going on. It's a beautiful image of an external war and an internal war. The external war is with the Amalekites, but the internal war is Moses within himself. Moses is kind of fighting his own inner Amalek within his heart, within his psyche. And whenever he vanquishes and conquers this inner Amalek, then Joshua and his soldiers can actually beat the Amalekite soldiers. And whenever he fails, they fail also. And the end, the happy ending. The happy ending is that the final verse of the story is Joshua weakened Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword, and the Jewish people prevailed, and the story basically ends. Now, at least two details in this story raise questions, and we have to understand them. So the first question is this. The Hebrews were able to conquer Amalek through Moses raising his hands. Now, just take a look at this image. You see someone raising his hands. What's the first thing that comes into your mind? When you see a picture, you look at a picture of someone with his hands raised. So this is a universal symbol of surrender. Not of winning, not of conquering, not of winning a battle. It's not like a victory sign. It's the opposite. It's I give up. In Hebrew, when you want to say that someone gives up, you say he raised his hands. I give up, because that's what we do. And this is the universal symbol of when you surrender. It's either a white flag or you go out like this, right, to show that you are not holding any weapons. So this is very strange. The fact that the Jews were able to win this war by having Moses stand on a hilltop and raise his hands in the universal symbol, gesture of surrender, of giving up, this is very, very strange. The other strange thing is the wording used for when the battle was over and Joshua won. It doesn't say he won. It doesn't say he beat them. It doesn't say he conquered them. It says vayachalosh Yoshua. Vayachalosh is weakened them. And this whole word in Hebrew is very strange because it means to conquer, but it comes from the word weak. But so the one explanation is that it means to weaken the enemy. Either way, it's a very strange word. It's a singular word. And it raises the question, why was it only weakening? Why not use the other more common words? And did Joshua only weaken the Amalekites? He didn't conquer them. They didn't win the battle. So it's very strange. Now, so two riddles. One is, why is it the raising of the hands? And why is it the word weaken? And we can add, by the way, a third riddle. And the third riddle is that following this battle, we get a contradictory commandment. On the one hand, it says we must eradicate all memory of Amalek. This is the phrasing. Timche zecher Amalek. Zecher is the memory of Amalek. On the other hand, it says, remember what Amalek did to you. And the word remember appears both as a commandment to remember and as a commandment of forgetting and eradicating all memory. So this is the third riddle now. So we have three riddles as to what's going on in this battle. Now the answer to all of these riddles is one, and it is a very, very deep answer. What can we do? What is it in our power to do when we're confronted by this kind of radical skepticism that demands absolute certainty? The answer is nothing at all. This is a perfect exercise in futility, because no amount of arguments, no amount of evidence will ever satisfy this kind of radical skepticism. Wherever we do, it is going to say, you can always doubt it, and I'm not so sure, and you're not absolutely sure. You know that even for many, many years, people believed that, at least in mathematics, you can have absolute proof. Until came this very, very clever genius. He ended up losing his mind because of this. But this very genius mathematician called Kurt Gödel. And he has something called the incompleteness theorems. And he was able to prove that you can't prove anything even in simple arithmetics. It's always based on a certain framework of assumptions that provide the infrastructure, let's say, of mathematics. And you can always come up with the different kinds of sort of framework. And so the idea is that really in no area in life can we find absolute proof. There's no such thing. Science doesn't prove anything. Science finds sufficient evidence for something. And everything in the world is like this. So there's nothing, absolutely nothing we can do when faced with sort of radical skepticism. So what can we do? We can give up. We can raise our hands and can say, you know what, Amalek? You're right. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the proofs. I don't know for sure. Why do you believe in God? Why do you believe in the Torah? Why do you think that this job is going to be good for you? Why do you think this spouse is going to be good for you? Who says? Are you absolutely sure? I don't know. I don't know. You're right, Amalek. In Hebrew, it rhymes, by the way. Amalek atatzodek. Amalek, you're right. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the proofs. But you know what I do know? It's what you told me. You taught me. You taught me to ask, who says? Says who? So I'm saying that to you now. Who says that I need to have proof for everything? Who says that I need to provide you with proof? Who says that you have the final word on everything? Who says skepticism is the highest ideal there is? You'll never be satisfied anyway. So we're going to do this, Amalek. You go ahead, keep doing your thing. You walk alongside me, you drive me crazy, you'll try to dissuade me, you'll try to make me go back, you do your thing. And I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to ignore you. And I'm going to go on marching to my personal Mount Sinai that's waiting for me in the future. And I'm going to marry that spouse, and I'm going to take that job, and I'm going to pick up the Torah, and I'm going to believe in God, and I'm going to do all the things that you demand that I give you something that I can't give you. So I give up. I raise my hands. Now this is brilliant when you think about it. This approach to dealing with Amalek is we're, instead of fighting doubt, we say, well, doubt is part of me. Doubt is part of faith. Doubt is part of my life, and I accept Amalek into my own life. I take in an element of Amalek into me. I sort of convert Amalek to my side. And this completely disarms this kind of radical skepticism. It's not ready for something like this. It comes fighting, and then we say, yeah, you're right. There is room for doubt. There is always room for doubt. So we disarm Amalek. And in fact, we do more than disarm Amalek. We use Amalek's weapon, the weapon of skepticism, against itself. We use skepticism in order to throw doubt on the very ideology of skepticism. We doubt itself. And now this answers all the riddles. So now we have an understanding of why Moses raised his hands, because he was giving up in some way. He was saying, yeah, Amalek is part of us. We can't win Amalek in a regular sort of way that we sort of get rid of him and that's it. This also explains why the word was weakened Amalek, because we're not trying to kill Amalek. We're trying to weaken him. We're trying to take him off from being the highest ideal. We want to take the idea, the tool of skepticism, and remove it from like the epics of the pyramid, from the highest level, and make it a secondary ideal. Make it a tool for something, for faith, for decision making, for things that are not absolute. This is when doubt is a very good thing. The only problem is that it's when it's all powerful. But if we weaken Amalek, it becomes a very good thing. And also it explains why we have to both remember and forget Amalek. Because on the one hand, we remember Amalek. We take him in. We preserve him in some way. We mention Amalek every year all the time. The Amalekites themselves have been gone for centuries. Who knows, for millennia. But the Jewish people still talk about them, and every year, and we discuss them, and every Purim, the holiday, is all about winning over Amalek. And because we want to remember them, because doubt is an essential part of being human, an essential part of being Jewish, an essential part of science and all this. And we need to remember, but we also need to forget, because we need to, again, weaken Amalek. We need to take him down from his sort of, this chair, like being like this monarch or being this all-powerful dictator. And we're taking him down from that role, so we forget him a little bit. We overcome doubt, because we're going on into Sinai and to receive the Torah. We overcame the doubt of Refidim, of Amalek. So we forget about it, but we also remember. It's paradoxical, but it goes together in a very, very deep way. Now, all this can become even deeper if you have the time and the patience and the energy and the attention. Then it's not going to be long, but we're going to do a short excursion, a little bit, into the world of the Kabbalistic Sefirot. The Sefirot are, of course, the channels of sort of energy and light that God uses to create the world and keep the world going. And it's sort of the inner map of everything. And we just have to know two of the Sefirot here. It's not the whole story. If we go into this a little bit, the whole thing becomes deeper. So we said that Amalek, so to speak, decapitates the head from the body, right? it disconnects the intellect from the emotions and action. So in the terms of the Sephirotic map corresponds to the human body. And there is one particular Sephirah that corresponds to the neck, and it connects the intellectual Sephirot, which are called Chokhmah and Binah, wisdom and understanding. It connects wisdom and understanding to the emotional Sephirot. And this Sephirah is called Da'at, which is translated as knowledge. Knowledge here is not just having pieces of knowledge. It's like the verse that says, Ve'adam yada et Chava ishto. Adam knew his wife Eve. It's like intimate knowledge. It's like when you know something, you're connected to it. So this is that. That is what connects the head with the body, the intellect with the emotions. And this is what Amalek attacks. And what Amalek does is that it, by insisting on having absolute certainty, absolute knowledge, is sort of overtaxing that. It's like putting too much weight on the dot. It's like choking a little bit the dot, the neck. And then what happens is that it cuts off the head from the heart, and it cuts off the decision-making process from actually arriving at what it's supposed to arrive at, which is actually making a decision. So it says, I want absolute knowledge, and then it becomes impossible to do anything, and then that is sort of breaks. And this is the sort of decapitation or the disconnection, okay? So now, what is the solution to this? So the solution to this, whenever we have something that we are too much going in circles with deliberation and trying to think and considering different options and trying to make a decision, unable to make a decision, we need to bypass that, because it became like there's like a traffic jam there, and we need to find another way. We need to bypass that, and we need to find another sort of route, a channel between the heart and the head. And really the head is messed up with that also. So we need to really go above the head. We need to go, this is the second Sephirah we need to know, which is called Keter. Keter is crown. The crown is the Sephirah that embodies or symbolizes the superconscious. That is, it's like the Freudian subconscious. There's a superconscious. The superconscious is above the intellect, above the head, and this is really where the soul root resides, and also where the power of faith, emunah, resides. So the idea is that is being attacked by Amalek, by this sense of doubt. We need to create a channel between the heart and the soul that's above the head. We need to bypass the head. Now, this is a very sort of illustrative way to think about this. How do you create a channel between the heart and what's above the head? So the answer is that you lift your hands. It's a very simple answer. When you lift your hands, there's something about lifting your hands that creates this image, this sort of channel between your heart and your superconscious that's above your head. And so this is the other explanation that goes along with the Sefirot. When Moses raised his hands, he created the kind of direct communication channel between faith, emunah, which resides above the intellect, and his heart, which resides below his intellect, because the intellect was being attacked by Amalek. So now this goes along beautifully with the verse. The verse says, Vayehi yadav emunah adbo hashamesh, which means he, Moses, was with his hands in faith until sunset. Now, this word here has many meanings. The simple reading, by the way, of the verse is Vayehi yadav emunah. Emunah doesn't just mean faith, it also means strength. And so the simple reading of the verse is that he had enough strength to raise his hands until sunset and when the battle was over. But also, it also means faith. So when we read it as meaning faith, then it says that his hands were raised up until he could reach and connect with this sort of hidden, deep sense of faith. And now, what does it mean until sunset? So we can, again, sunset on the simple reading is the end of the day. But we can also transition this whole image from the temporal dimension to a sort of soul dimension, a metaphorical dimension. And then we can say that what is the sun? The sun is the sun of the intellect and of certainty and of knowledge. And the place where faith is, above the head, it's a place where the sun of certainty sets and it's dark and you don't know for sure, but you believe. And so that is a place. So nighttime is not just a time, it's also a place. It's a spiritual place, it's a spiritual space where the sun of certainty doesn't shine. What does shine? We can say the moon of faith, which, by the way, the Hebrew word for faith, like I said, is emunah, and you can spell it emunah. So it has the word moon inside the word emunah, the word faith. So that's a nice way to think about it. So the sun of intellectual knowledge sets, but the moon of emunah rises in that place that's above the regular realm of decision making, which you need to connect to whenever you are faced with Amalek. And think about it, that's how it is. I mean, when doubt attacks you and wants absolute knowledge, absolute proof, and you can't provide it, then you say, well, I don't know, but I choose to believe. I choose to believe something, and that's the only way I can make any decision based on partial knowledge, which is all we ever have, is partial knowledge. Now let's put it all together and see and finish this whole thing up. So we gave two interpretations for the raising of the hands symbol. One was that Amalek, you're right, Amalek atatzodek, we're giving up, and there is room for doubt, you're right, and I need to accept doubt. The other explanation just now was that we're raising our hands in order to connect to faith. So these two interpretations appear on the surface, maybe even contradictory. Either the raising of the hands means accepting doubt, or the raising of the hands means accepting faith. But there's no contradiction here at all. It absolutely goes together. Because the raising of the hands really means one thing, and the two interpretations are just two sides of the same coin. It means, I don't know, but I have faith. This is what it means. Raising my hands whenever you encounter this kind of Amalekite demon is, I don't know, but I have faith. I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm going for it. I'm trusting my instincts. I'm trusting my sense of inner sense of decision making, my heart, my soul. If it's only the intellect, I'm never going to come out of the situation. There's no way I'm going to come out of it alive, and I'm just going to be trapped in square one with limp hands, incapacitated, immobilized, and I won't be able to do anything. So these are the two sides of this story. Faith is not knowledge. Faith is believing in something despite not knowing for sure that it's true. In other words, faith and doubt absolutely go together. You can never ever separate them. Wherever there's faith, there has to be doubt. Because if you would know for sure, it wouldn't be faith, it would be knowledge. And the whole point of faith is that there are many things in life, most things, we don't know for sure what they are, what to do about them, and we have to go beyond knowledge, and we have to go into this territory of doubt, and only in the territory of doubt can there be faith. So the bottom line is that whenever you find yourself facing an important decision, like a career choice, like marriage, like holding on to your faith in God, and you're attacked by this demon of doubt, then you need to answer, you need to be calm, and need to answer back, Amalek, you're right. Amalek atatzodek. I don't know for certain that this is the right decision, but I choose to believe that it is. Have a wonderful, beautiful Shabbat, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi, if you enjoyed this video, please press like, subscribe to the channel, and consider sharing it with your friends. See you in the next video.